Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and thanks for tuning in to the Dealer Insights podcast, where we go under the hood, bumper to bumper, and just about everywhere in between, discussing topics important to dealers of all types and sizes. Your time is valuable, so thanks for riding along for this episode of Dealer Insights.
And we're back with another episode of Dealer Insights. Vinny, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you today, Sean?
I'm doing great. Hey, for the audience, we're talking about kind of a hot topic right now. Everyone's talking about ChatGPT, and graphic designers are talking about Midjourney and DALL-E 2 or DALL-E 2, or maybe I'm not pronouncing that one right. But this whole artificial intelligence is really going to the next level. It's becoming much more commercially available, and people are playing with it. So today we're talking about AI versus automation. And I think that's a hot topic. What do you think? I mean, everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, I as you and I, as the auto industry and probably other industries turn, right? We've followed a lot of different new hot topics, and this is absolutely one that is everywhere. And it's funny. I think it's confusing to a lot of people. So hopefully, we can help simplify it. Like
I think it is too. I don't think it's even just always when it's confusing. I think people they just don't know. And so somebody takes the headline and then they're going to run with it. So I say we kind of dig into that on this episode. Like maybe even like what's like the biggest difference between artificial intelligence and automation?
Yeah, I just did a post last night and I tagged you in it, but I couldn't tag it from my phone, so it just has your name in it. But
where's that post at?
In LinkedIn, and it was an article, and the title of the article: "Will AI replace humans in the workplace?" And I've been doing a lot of research, as I told you prior to this call or this podcast. Spending tons of time playing with ChatGPT, looking at what's coming, understanding how it's affecting the world. As you know, we have some new tech coming as well. Ironically, we're working with ChatGPT, or within ChatGPT on some of what we're doing. And so ChatGPT is basically a robot. It's artificial intelligence. And what I wrote was, people worried a long time ago about the internet. You know, I always like to tell this story. When I was in college, it was early to mid-90s, and I had a professor show us this new thing called Yahoo and AOL. Yeah, that's a true story. I'm old, just like you. We're about the same age. I remember looking at it and being kind of confused by it. And so I would imagine when the calculator first came out, people were probably confused by that.
Absolutely.
Or like the automobile or whatever, you know, and that's kind of how I'm looking at AI and ChatGPT. It's progress, and we don't really need to understand it as much. You know, we just need to adapt to it and embrace the changes that are coming, because they're definitely coming. This thing isn't going to slow down. So I remember when we first did a BDC and we started hitting internet leads, everyone was like, no, they're giving away my gross and all this other stuff. And it's scary. And, you know, maybe you're not going to need salespeople anymore. No. So I'll leave you. I mean, I will start with this, right? Not leave you. AI versus automation. There's been automations for quite a while. Automations are built to reduce tasks. So the title of that article was, "Will AI replace humans?" And I'm going to say no, but it will replace repetitive tasks. Anything that's repetitive that a machine can learn, you know, you have to worry about that. So one of the things we're working on within Strawlit is, and my CTO, Thomas, I brought him on, and he asked me, what is the most value? What can we, work on that you see the most value in? And I said, conversations. because going back to the late 90s into the 2000s and the 2000 teens, I was tasked with managing a staff of people and making sure that they delivered a high level of customer service to a customer. The challenge is, how do you listen to all those phone calls? So David Rosenberg, one of my mentors and first bosses, used to task me with listening to who's calling. Do you remember who's calling?
Of course.
And I had to go in and listen to all the calls. And I went to my other boss, David, and I said, I can't listen to all these calls. If you want me to do anything else, I mean, I'm going to spend all day listening to the calls. Yeah. However, by listening to a lot of calls way back when, it gave me an appreciation for the conversation. And I don't know how to state that's so powerful, right? Like, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about maybe customer data platforms and other things that are going on in the industry in a minute. But the conversation is what I told Thomas, there's gold in those conversations. How do we tap into that? And you can't do it as a human because there's not enough hours in the day unless you want to, but you can with AI.
Very true.
So with that said, I mean, AI, I mean, artificial intelligence is basically, so think of it this way. Artificial intelligence is not going to replace human emotion. It's not going to replace human intuition. It's not going to replace critical thinking. So anyone that works in a space like you do in marketing, AI is not going to be able to sit and listen to Vin, understand what his needs are, and then come up with some kind of creative strategy, right? Because it takes the human brain is just so amazing, right? At using, like I said, you know, intuition and human intelligence, and you know what it can do. Though it can understand speech. It can understand speech. It can understand yes/no decision making. Answer trees, stuff like that, and it can learn from that. Whereas automation refers to the technology to perform tasks without human intervention. So automations in AI are kind of similar, but there's a lot of stuff in the market that people are saying is AI, and it's really not. Like, for example, there's a system out there that I'm not going to name the name, but the dealers buy because it'll respond to your customers via email. And I'm like, well, I can set that up in your CRM for you, you know, to send out an email. And we have a tracker, but wouldn't you rather a human being respond quickly to that response? Yes. So we believe in people here at Stralid. So,
well, and a really, I think, important component to that is people want to be communicating with people, right? If I get to choose and I'm going to be interacting with a car dealership, I know for me, and yes, I'm old school too, you know, Motley Crue, yeah, they're back on the road. I love it. But I'm not ready to be comfortable with artificial intelligence handling all or maybe too much of that dialogue or that conversation. Can it be used that helps facilitate? Maybe I'm okay with that, especially if I can't tell. But I want to talk to Vinny. I want, you know, hey, my guy.
Think about it this way, Sean. When you say that, I agree, but I disagree. I'm going to disagree because be careful what you wish for, because sometimes when you ask for people to be involved, it can be ugly and bad training and yada, yada, yada. So, however, what technology did to us 25 years ago or 35 years ago was bring in this new complexity, right? Now we got to sit behind a keyboard and we got to type stuff into a CRM and we got to click this and press that and send this. And then don't forget to send that. And then this task comes and send that and do it. And guess what they forget? Well, what about the customer? Like, you're making sure all these buttons are pressed and emails are sent and all this other stuff. And like, you forget that your real job is to talk to a person. So imagine if you could clear the way so you can make sure that person is actually really good at talking to other people. Yeah.
And I guess that's what I'm saying is I still have a preference for especially something that costs so much money, I still have a preference for knowing that there's a human being involved in that dialogue. Everybody uses technology to various extents to improve efficiency, speed. There's a lot of reasons, but I still like to talk to a person at the dealership. I mean, I think that's important. So what do you think? You made some really good points around, the differences between, and we're certainly seeing a lot of people with ChatGPT. I've been playing with it a lot myself. I've also been playing with Midjourney quite a bit. And I've been kind of astonished on both sides, both from a written perspective around artificial intelligence as well as graphics. And it kind of blew my mind that AI had grown up so much around understanding image and how to classify, and maybe it's defining around images. And that's essentially what's happening within Midjourney is if you know how to set up the right prompts, backgrounds, tell it what style you're looking for, there's an entire library of reference. Like if you wanted it to be like, hey, create a painting of Gillette Stadium in the style of Van Gogh, and it'll do those things, which has really kind of blown me away. Do you think that AI's comparison to automation in terms of intelligence and decision making is something that people are still they don't quite understand the difference?
It's a great question. So you're talking about an AI system can set up all the backgrounds and all this stuff, but someone has to make a decision. Does that look good?
Yeah.
And AI isn't going to make that decision. Go ask ChatGPT. I did this the first time I played with it. Is Donald Trump a good president?
Oh, boy.
And it responded, I don't have an opinion one way or another. Because it doesn't. It's not a human being. It doesn't have an opinion. It can't. If it has an opinion, that would be really scary. And maybe someday these computer systems will. But really, it's getting its information from what you feed it. You know what I'm saying? So one of the scary things about AI is you could get some mad scientists to feed it really evil stuff. It could take over the world, right? That's what Elon Musk has been preaching, which could absolutely happen. But I mean, think about it, Sean. We have crazy people with nuclear weapons right now.
For sure we do. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
With their finger real close to the button, I guess. It's anyway, I don't want to get too sci-fi on you, but my answer to you is I've been around Sean a long time. You're very talented, and you know the industry as well as anybody in the marketing concepts. And you and I have had lots and lots of conversations. We became friends and we stayed together. But your creativity is what makes Sean, not setting up a background.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some people do get paid to do that, though. But if it is repetitive, not for nothing, there are some websites out there that are very repetitive, right? You sign up with them, and here are the 4 backgrounds you get to choose from. It's where's the creativity?
Yeah.
That's where you and your expertise. Now, maybe 3 or 4 generations from now, will that expertise even exist because you don't need it anymore because everything does everything for you? I mean, you and I will be long gone by by the time that happens. But I promise you, there'll be other jobs at that time.
Yeah.
That's what we neglect to forget. That we forget. A mathematician was probably upset when the calculator came out because he's teaching everyone how to do math.
Yep.
No one's afraid of a calculator anymore. As a matter of fact, I use one all the time. And the farmer was probably afraid of the tractor, right?
Yeah. Midjourney, especially the graphic side of AI, I've been actually playing around with it a lot more than ChatGPT lately. And it absolutely has a set of parameters and prompts. And the better you get at that, the more amazing things that you can create. And it is literally blowing my mind of how good it is. And I've told a lot of my marketing friends inside and outside of the car business to like stop worrying about these AI tools and start learning how to use them as tools, because you as the human that has like what you were saying, the creativity in mind.
Here's an interesting thought on that. If you're worried, there's a reason.
You probably
you're probably not that talented. If you think
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not doing much and you hope your cushy job goes away or something like that, because frankly, you can't. I get to spend time now with people more and train them how to sell, how to talk, how to interact, how to actually help a business, how to look at data and provide value to the customer and say, based on this information, here's some solutions for you, instead of worrying about all the minutia that goes along with doing a job, like figuring out which background. Like, if the thing can figure out which background, I'm not a shortcut master. I always have been. I'm always looking for good shortcuts because I want to spend more time talking to customers. I don't want to spend time. I told you this in the last podcast, I could never do a BDC job very well for very long. And I run a BDC company. I did it because I love salespeople. And I know most good salespeople are like me, and they don't want to sit there behind a computer sending emails and sending texts and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. When the customer's engaged, that's when I'm at my best. Yeah. Do you know how many leads we go through that never engage? You call them on day 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, and they never pick up the phone. You send an email every 1 through all the way up to 90 days. You send a text and then repeat. And it's like, why don't we just figure out, and ChatGPT can help us do this, especially when we start adding the conversation into it. Because I tell us, don't waste your time with that. Call these people. Get results. Get outcomes. Sell. Speak to more people. If you want to speak to more people, call more of these types of people. Right? And whatever. Like these leads have no phone numbers. Why waste your time on them? I told Car Gurus recently that 30% of their leads don't have a phone number, and it inhibits my ability to communicate with your customers. And of course, they're not stupid; they know that. It's not a hard data set to figure out, right? Which leads have phone numbers and which ones don't. It's usually a they're not the only ones, by the way. I hate to single them out because there's a whole bunch of and now we can maybe examine that a little, where it would think about it. You're a human being. This is what I like about the idea of using AI as time goes on. You're a human being. You look at 10 reports. What happens to your brain by the time you're on the 10th report?
No.
You're fried.
Yeah,
the computer doesn't get fried.
I like where your business is at, though, because, for Strawlid, I think, let me ask you in a question, because you guys are in the place where you're at. I think that the fact that AI is really about, having these machines that are so smart that they can learn and adapt. Automation isn't that, right? Automation is going to make the processes more streamlined, right? It's right. Okay. But both of those things where you guys sit, as AI gets better and better and better, you guys will be able to say, here's where more of that can be implemented and it 100%. Makes sense. And you know what? Just a simple automation is actually all that's required in this. And then here's where all the human capital and, experience goes into it. Do you feel that way too with your business?
I'm looking forward to it because all I want to do is talk to a customer. Think about all the work that goes into trying to get a customer on a phone in a BDC.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's the kind of stuff. But once you get them engaged, now I want to talk to them. That's the value.
Yeah.
I try telling this to my dealers all the time. What Strawlid does for dealers right now is we weed through all of that. We call them, text them, email. And the ones that engage, we're 60% effective at getting an appointment on the ones we're engaged with. The other 40%, maybe 20% of those will TO to the dealer and say, "What do you want to do with this customer? Because we couldn't get an appointment." What more would you want from a company?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't. And so they spend all this time and thinking, 10% lead to close ratio and all this other stuff. I don't even pay attention to that as much as I do. What do we do with the customer that we're on the phone with? Did we get an appointment or not?
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the 10% lead to close, I say that because that's like everyone's like, oh, can you get me to 10% lead to close? It's like, let me look at your leads first. Give me 90 days and let me tell you how we can get there. But I'm not going to promise you we can do that because you might have, 70% of your leads coming in from a crappy, lead provider with no engagement. They're like, I don't even know if they're real people.
Yeah.
But I do that work for you. Now imagine if my people only had to talk to engaged customers. That's where it gets kind of interesting. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Just like these customer data platforms that have been the new buzzword, none of them really have been good at explaining to me what they're going to do to help a dealer sell more cars.
Is there one, by the way, is there a CDP in automotive, or we're right now on the hunt for it?
No, there are.
Okay.
PureCar just bought AutoMiner, which is a kind of a customer data platform, I believe. I don't know enough about it to comment. What's the other one? Orbi.
Orbi is one. Okay.
Thomas and I met with them, and what's interesting is, are they going to help you sell more cars? Maybe. What their intent is to help you understand your customer better. Mm-hmm. And I'll repeat that. They're going to help you understand who your customer is a little bit better because they're matching the customer all these data points, which should give you the ability to personalize that conversation with that customer a little bit better. But what Starlet is going to bring to the table is way more powerful, in my opinion, because we're going to be able to tell you what the customer is actually saying.
Yeah, that's
important. What the way they're doing is important, but okay, so we're sending these messages to the people at the right times is what they're saying. I don't know exactly how it works, so I don't want to downplay them, but I asked a bunch of questions and I got fuzzy answers, not just from Orbi and AutoMiner, but there was a couple others we spoke to and a couple of people, and we just talked about it a little while ago. Brian Pash is talking a lot about this.
He is, yeah.
If I'm a dealer, I want to know how we say this internally at Strala, but what does the dealer want to know? How many more cars are you going to sell me?
Right.
Yeah. Is it going to sell me more cars? Because they know leads will sell more cars. That's why they're all addicted to leads.
Right.
But are these customer data platforms going to get you more leads? Steph Ferry, who's the CEO at I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning his name, at PureCar, he told me the first thing you want to do, Vin, is if you have any e-lead dealers or any dealers, for that matter, on CRM, is make sure they clean their data and append it. And it was smart. Like, he's a very smart guy. I consider him a good friend. And again, I hope he doesn't mind me mentioning him on this, but yeah. I asked him why, and I shouldn't have asked. I should have figured it out myself. But he was like, once you clean up your data, now you're going to have a much more efficient spend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. For sure.
And a lot of dealers aren't even thinking about that. So I've been telling all my dealers lately, like, an AutoMiner that they bought does that. So clearly, there's a plug for you, Steph, if you're listening. But there's a big value in that piece, right, of the customer data platform. My problem is, and I'm not saying they're not good. I tried to understand while I was there, like, what else they do for me. Yeah. Okay, so now it's clean. Now we're getting like website traffic, email traffic, all this kind of stuff coming in to the system and says Sean Rains visits service this many times and does this and that, and it all organizes all that. Where does it go from there, I guess, is where I get fuzzy. So
yeah. Well, so the really good points. It makes me think of a question. So especially around, Steph sharing that cleaning up your database is going to, have some immediate impact on, spend, cleaning that up. AI systems, I don't know if, and I won't maybe ask it as a direct question because I'll just share with the audience. AI systems actually can make mistakes, right? But yeah. The way they make mistakes is different from an automation rule that's been set up or an automation system. And so an AI system, if it makes a mistake, it learns from it, right? And so it's like, oh, I made a mistake, but now I will get better because it's constantly learning and adapting. Whereas if you've set up automation rules, we've had these for a long time. And just even setting up your email. Well, if it comes here, I want it to go here. Basic. If this, then that. Those can only.
It's like a subset. Automation is like AI is like a subset of automation, right? We had automation first. AI comes second. Now it's asking and learning from did the automation work or not, I guess. But
an automation all in its own doesn't ever learn from its mistakes. It's literally so pre-programmed that it's just this, right?
Correct.
Right. So do you think that, given that AI can make a mistake but learn from it, and automation rules, can also do something wrong but cannot learn, it'll just keep doing the same thing over and over and over. Is there a place within that you think, AI eventually will actually maybe not replace all simple automations, but we'll get to a point where some of these older school simple automations will be unnecessary because AI will actually even be better at them?
Well, think about what you just said. Simple, right? I just told you I'm a shortcut guy. Do you remember the Jetsons?
Yeah, I love the Jetsons.
Do you remember when George used to jump in his car and fly to work and go through all the traffic, and then he would sit down and he would press a button and put his feet up and read the newspaper?
Yeah.
And the system did everything for him. Why is he even there?
Yeah.
Right? That was a long time ago. I mean, that was in the 80s, right? Maybe even 70s. I don't know. But so AI, I don't think it's going to ever get to that point. I don't think it's going to do everything for everybody. I think it's going to give us time to spend doing the important human interaction stuff, because human interaction is a human need. It's not a want; it's a human need. You need interaction. That's why I was so scared over the last few years for all my kids and all the kids actually in the world that were cooped up in their houses and all that crap during COVID, because I mean, you see the backlash from that. To increase drug use and depression and suicide and all kinds of shit.
It's awful.
And it's dude, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand how important it is to have connections with other human beings.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's funny, nobody wants to talk about this stuff, but the studies they've done even on infants and toddlers not being able to see faces. Yeah. And how
it's an emotion. You feel it, you feel that connection that's important to your being, And if God forbid that ever goes away, I hope I am gone by then. But then again, I worry about my kids' children and grandchildren, because that could be the way it all ends. Is what do we need people for?
Right. Just
flying balloons around. We're getting pretty deep, but I can tell you right now, my research and all the stuff I've been doing on AI, it's far from that happening. And anyone who tells you, "Oh, you're wrong," it's going to take over the world and scary, blah 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 blah. All right, Mr. Conspiracy Theorist. I'm
not even going to go down the sci-fi rabbit hole of some of the ones, because I read an article this weekend actually about, how AI eventually will play into kind of where people want to go with robotics and transhumanism and all these crazy things. And they're like, it may be as soon as before this decade is over, by 2030, that we have so much going on with robots and all of that, and that we'll treat them better than we treat ourselves. And I'm like, man, I hope that's not the case. But I want to swing back, because you're sharing some things, and I think that just extracting some things from the conversation thus far, I think some examples of AI versus automation where it really seems to work, and this can be adapted into any business, but certainly all over automotive, it's found opportunities can be found, is AI is really, I think, very much on target for tasks that do require an adaptation and constant learning, right? And so, I was telling you about Midjourney, the image recognition piece is fascinating to me right now. But what you're talking about is on that natural language processing. I mean, that's I don't know if it's right in the middle, but it's close to like, that's so powerful for your business. And automation is more for the repetitive tasks, right? Like data entry and scheduling stuff. But the AI piece around natural language processing is really huge for, I think, for dealers to understand that, because it's going to continue to help them.
Yeah, I think what ChatGPT is going to teach us is what to automate. And it's going to tell us when we didn't answer a call, or a call got disconnected, or a customer was upset. Because it's amazing, but one of the first demos Thomas did for me was we took a live transcript, we fed it to ChatGPT, and we said, summarize this, and it summarized it for us perfectly. And then when we asked it, was the customer upset? Or was the customer happy? And it came back, yes, this customer seemed happy. So it could tell the sentiment of the call, which, again, we talk about emotion. So, like, how did it know? And you know what? I don't even have the answer for you on that one yet. But it blew my mind, because I'm thinking, if I fed every communication into ChatGPT and just got the sentiment alone, we're miles ahead of any dealer or other company like ours, just to be able to stay on top of making sure our people are delivering a high level of, human interaction, as we just talked about.
Yeah.
But how many calls did you lose? When I was at Group 1, we used to run a phone report, and we could never get it above 10%. Abandoned calls, they called it. And I would drill into that, because it made me mad that we were losing 10% of the calls. Well, some of the calls, the customer never even let the phone ring and they hung up. Or they let it ring once or twice and hung up. Some of the calls, there was a lot of reasons for it. Like, you're never going to get to 0 or 100% answered.
Right.
But I don't, even talking about it right now, Sean, I don't know exactly what that 10% was. But ChatGPT can tell me what that 10% is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another kind of question that I had is AI. Can AI systems interact with humans in a more natural way than an automation system?
Can AI interact with humans?
With humans more naturally than just an automation?
Of course. Yeah, automations are ridiculous. We have them, but my why I don't get upset that we put some automations in, like I mentioned, there are some tools out there that charge dealers for this, but we could do it automatically. And every CRM has this capability to send out on unengaged leads, meaning I haven't had a conversation with you, Sean, but I don't want to have to send an email every single day to you. I can set up an automation to go out with well-written emails that are written to get a response. And if you respond, then we change it to a working lead, and we handle it differently. So this is way above what most people think about when they think about a BDC. Well, you get the lead, you call it, you set an appointment, right? No, it's not that easy. I wish it were. Or you take a call and you set an appointment. No. Sometimes you have to call them back, or they call you back, or sometimes you go back and forth 10 times. Like, I can tell a dealer very soon.
What? 10 times? They don't just set the appointment on the first call.
Exactly. That's what everyone thinks. And so eventually I'll be able to have reporting that says, here's how many touch points we have with each customer on average.
Yeah.
This is how many times we make outbound calls. And this is the sweet spot, and I already know. Day 1, if you call it fast enough, you're going to reach the customer. Day 2, you get less of a response. Day 3, you get a little less of a response. I've had dealers that tell me, I want you to call my customer 3 times a day for 3 days in a row. And I'm like, okay, but that's kind of like almost borderline harassment,
Exactly.
No, but if that's what you want us to do, we can charge you for that, I guess, but I don't recommend it. Because if I'm calling you within 5 minutes of you submitting the lead and you don't pick up, I'll bet you the data. I don't know, so I'm excited to learn myself. But I bet you the data eventually says to me, if you don't reach the person if calling it in 10 minutes, it doesn't matter if you call it 10 days in a row. They're never going to pick up.
Yeah,
because they didn't want a phone call. And how many of those that don't pick up on the phone email back and forth? Because remember I said we call 10 times some customers. Some customers we might email back and forth 20 times. Mm-hmm. Or text back and forth 30 times.
Yeah.
Before we actually get an appointment. So like all that work is what makes a sales BDC very complicated and complex. The service BDC is much easier. You're calling me, I schedule an appointment or not, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I go on to the next call.
But very interesting that you have all of this data, and you have lots of data that's actually created by humans interacting with other humans. Mm-hmm. And it's Thomas.
It's all trapped in there that nobody can see. That's what I told Thomas.
And Thomas is your CTO for the audience that is not like putting it all together. So Thomas is the first person I heard, I don't know if he came up with it, but the term robot food. Meaning what we're feeding the AI systems, which I've used that. I've totally stolen it from him, but I always say,
the name of that's most likely going to be the name of our new company.
Robot food. Love it. So robot food, when he said that, I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Well, everything that you guys are doing, and if, dealers, anybody that's watching this, the customer communications that are happening from a business development center, all this interaction, when you have all of this data and you can use that data, conversational data and all that stuff, and put that into an AI engine, that's your robot food to make it smarter. Yeah, exactly. The whole can a AI system interact with the human in a more natural way than an automation system? That's why, and you've alluded to it, and I think it's always a sign of how much of a professional you are that you don't just drag somebody through the mud. So we're not naming names, but there have been some things available to dealers that have been using that are really very intricate and fancy automation, right? That yes, somebody could go into most of
we're eating our own robot food.
Yeah. Whereas in your case, I think AI gets better and better and better based on how you guys are using data, taking that data, putting that robot food into the system. So again, the difference between AI, and it will continue to get better and better, making humans feel this natural discussion, which hasn't felt that way thus far. Mm-hmm. Automation will never, ever, ever be able to do that. And I think the separation between really great artificial intelligence, I think it's going to be the great creative thinking and expertise of the humans that train the system to, now it's a tool, this is how it works for us, versus it'll get to a point where automation can't even compete. So it's just going to have to be simple task scheduling stuff for that, and everything else is going to be AI based on companies like yours that take the robot food to the next level. Right.
Well, I'll tell you where critical thinking comes in, Sean. Talking to my wife last night, her lease is up in June. And I told her, I know what she wants to buy. And I'm like, what color combination do you want? And she's like, I'm not sure. I like this, but I don't like that. Maybe this. I may need to see it. And it's like, well, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a conversation there that requires her thought. Now, a computer can't think for her.
Yeah.
It can't answer a question for her. And so a salesperson needs to be able to ingest that. And there's so many different conversations that are going on. You can listen. At the end of the day, AI is going to be able to give opinions, or like there's a robot out there right now for service where it can schedule an appointment. Yes, if you call and you say, "I'd like to schedule an appointment," great. We have 1, 2, and 4 o'clock available today. What time today can you come in? And the customer says 4 o'clock. Okay, you're booked for 4 o'clock. Can I get your I don't know what it asks, your phone number or your VIN number or whatever, and then it identifies you as a customer, and your email address is in there, and it can send you an email. That's, honestly, that's why I stayed away from service BDC, is because, frankly, it's not that hard to do. Mm-hmm. However, what I found out was that system only answers 20% of the calls. Because customers aren't just calling to schedule an appointment. And if you listen to our calls, you'll hear what they really want to talk about, which a robot can't answer. When you start getting into a conversation with a human being, you can try. I know you've probably been on some bot services where, like, I was on Lowe's the other day. It says, do you want one of these 4 reasons for you chatting with me? And it's like, no, none of those are what I want. It's trying to pigeonhole you into like saving them time, which makes sense. I mean, as a business, you want that. I want that for my business, and I know every dealer out there probably wants that for their business. I don't need every single phone call if we can strip out some. But the problem is, one of those systems I found out, Sean, those AI systems for a dealer that schedules 20% of their appointments. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm not naming names for a reason. It costs $3,500 to $4,000 a month. You can hire a person to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That 20%.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So I don't understand the efficiency is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point to bring up around cost, because AI cost versus automation cost. Eventually, AI systems will be, I mean, even right now, they're more expensive than an automation system. And I think for good reason. Obviously, the amount of technology, software, and all that. ChatGPT eventually, I don't think will be free. Midjourney on the graphics side is not for, well, they give you like a little free package, but then that expires. So, but I think costs over time, it would be interesting for people to consider that AI will actually have a little bit more cost to it than just automation, but
100%.
The benefit of doing that is going to be so like untouchable by just a simple automation system. That'll be interesting. That'd be interesting.
Sure will be. So a couple of things that I really wanted to point out. One is where this is going, in my opinion, from my point of view, in my business, and from a marketing standpoint, is in the very near future, we're going to be able to personalize messaging to people, whether it be advertisements or inbound communications with Strala, because as we ingest all this data, as time goes on and Sean calls a second or a third time, we're going to know who you are. There's already systems out there. Like, I don't know if you know this, but your voice is personal information. It's unique to you. So I believe Fidelity, there's some company out there that someone was telling me the other day that when they call up, all they have to do is start talking and it actually knows who you are. Obviously with these things, we already have face recognition.
Yeah.
Which can identify who you are. All that personal information is very, very, very important to the government and to, like, in Europe with the GDPR, because it's basically saying we can identify a certain race or religion or type of person. That's what they did back in World War II.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why personal privacy is such a big, big, big deal. So with our invention, one of the things that separates us from a lot of the conversational stuff that's out there is Thomas invented a VCon, which captures the conversation, but also masks it for masks all the PII, all the personal identifiable information, and can mask your voice, can do all kinds of stuff. And that's why we got attention from the IETF, and why the VCon is most likely going to become an internet standard. It's that, and we standardize how to collect the conversational data, summarize it, and all that kind of stuff. And we have, a patent coming out as well. So those are the things I want to talk about on our next podcast. But that's one thing I wanted to mention is the mass personalization, because what it can do for Strala is, as the call comes in, well, we know a lead came in with your name and a phone number, and that's tough. I forget what it's called, but the data, to match that data is not that easy to do, to make sure it's the same. And that's where these customer data platforms really get me kind of confused, because how do they know that the guy that was on the website is really Sean and not someone using your computer and all kinds of other stuff? You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to do that. So I'm not putting down the customer data platforms. I don't think that's the only place that you need to gather data to help personalize the customer experience. I think the conversation is critical. Yeah. Because we can tell all the activities that Sean did, times in service, how many cars you bought from us, you're on our website, you're on all these different websites and all that. We gather all that. But what did you say when you called us?
Right.
How many times did it take for us to actually close a deal. Everybody wants a sale to be easy. A sale isn't easy. I just talked about this with my sales team this morning. When you're engaged with somebody, that's when you slow down. Don't speed up, try to get the sale. Slow down and listen. Appreciate the fact that you got a person on the phone or in front of you, and take your time with that person. Because as time goes on, fewer and fewer people, Sean, you know this, come into a showroom.
Yep.
Why would you rush through that? Why would you rush through a phone call when you have somebody engaged? The problem is trying to train that salesperson, because we don't have enough time, because we're training them on technology, we're training them on all this automations and all these bells and whistles and all these different things that maybe, half their time they're spending talking to customers, when 100% of their time, in my opinion, should be talking to customers.
Yeah.
So anyway, the personalization is coming. It's already coming. Like, when you're talking about something and then it shows up on your phone. For
sure.
People say that they're listening. It's not always just listening. Some of it is that they're tracking you too. Your keystrokes and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of scary. And the government knows it's scary. And that's why what Thomas invented is so powerful, is because we can protect people. He calls it important work. And actually the CTO of Cisco, I think it was Cisco. I hope I'm not. I'm 90% sure the CTO of Cisco said what Thomas invented was important work.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, personalization, just that alone, that's been an
but also protecting your information too, not just personalization.
Yeah,
protecting you as a person.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean is within personalization, it's been evolving that particular topic for many years now, and I remember several years back, the de-anonymization of website visitor data. And now we have, of course, more and more laws and more capabilities. Apple more recently with how much consumer data, we have choices and levels of protection, what California does. There's all these different things going on, and personalization kind of begins that, opens the door to where maybe we didn't provide enough protection for the consumer, right? And so they tie together. And I think I would agree, that is important work, because you're going to have to be able to find the balance between, well, we want to extract the right customer data points so that the personalization makes sense, so that you and I as consumers are like, man, that's on the money. Like, great. You're not wasting my time. You know me, so that people feel like this is helpful, right? AI eventually, the revolution is to, I think, improve the way people live and the way they work. And personalization is a huge part of that, but is it worth the sacrifice of, well, you didn't protect enough of these other points? And so, that is, of course, very important work. Very important.
Well, listen, here's the moral of the story is, there is a great deal of AI out there. There's a great deal of, there are people doing conversational data and transcribing calls. There are customer data platforms, as we just talked about. There's all kinds of stuff out there. But guess what? I call a big company and I get transferred 4 times the other day.
Only 4?
No one knows who I called before. Oh, wait a minute. You got the wrong place. Let me transfer you to another place. This really happened. I'll just say it was Lowe's. They came and installed a stove in my house. It was this far away from the wall when I got home. And my son Jake says, well, they told me not to push it too far against the wall. And I'm like, why? They're like, it doesn't fit. And I'm like, they just left it here. So like, I'm losing my mind. Try calling them.
Oh.
That's what we do for dealers, right? Every day. So I get more frustrated on situations like that. But you're talking about a big company. It's not just Lowe's. It's all kinds of companies. Home Depot. I had to return a stove from Home Depot because when I turned it on, it sounded like a jet engine going off in my. And I'm like, I called them and they're like, oh yeah, well, like, can you come get it? I don't want it. And I'm not a bad person, but like when we talk about personalization, I'm talking about how do you treat your customer too? These bots cause a lot of frustration right now. But imagine if you could feed the right information to a human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? No one knows, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. So what Thomas is trying to help me understand, and I'll try and help you understand, but there are companies that take the conversation and transcribe it. But what do they do with that? They send it to the dealer, maybe. This was a bad call, or this was a good call. Great. You know how many phone systems Lowe's probably has? None of them are talking to each other.
Right.
Conserver takes all of those, you plug them all in that we created, and now it's all in one place. Yeah. Now, if you call in the future, when you say, let's say the U.S. says, you turn into Europe and you can call a company and say, I want you to destroy all my data. We have all the data pointed to one place now.
Yeah.
And it's helping feed the robots, and it's helping feed your employees the right information about the right customer. And that's where I think it's not, believe me, we're far from being there, but Strollet is pioneering some of that, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's huge. It's
really deep tech. It's not surface tech. It's deep stuff that and Thomas is very proud of it. The IETF, if we ever do get this as a standard, which we're on track to, he's going to Yokohama, Japan in March. To him, that's like the Heisman Trophy for engineers.
Yeah.
Like he's super excited, which he should be.
I was going to say he should be. This is like, this is not, this isn't high school football BDC conversational, talking about customer or whatever. This is Belichick. This is like the best of the best, right? This goes to a different level. Yeah.
He's got some serious people working on it with us. But we're kind of taking all the thunder away from the next podcast. But the next podcast, I want to explain this in more depth with a demo.
Yeah.
With what we have. Not so much about AI versus automation. Hopefully we got that point across and was clear about how, just to summarize, AI is a subset of automation. Like, you need the automation to then understand what happened, or did it work or not, and then it kind of like starts to learn.
Yeah.
So it is kind of an automation, but it's a subset of it that uses artificial intelligence.
Yeah. I think I think we were able to cover that pretty well. And I think people that are trying to understand it, I think that people that this particular topic will appeal to them in this episode, they're going to want to go next. And it's like, I don't know if we'll truly make it a part 2 or adjacent, but I don't think we went really into the depths of, when you get to the demo part. Now we're going to be able to go into nuts and bolts. Right now, just making sure on this episode where people can, kind of get their head around the differences, because we've mentioned it on this episode. There have been companies, tools out there for a while that proclaim to be artificial intelligence that are really just automation. Very sophisticated automation, right? And
or not so sophisticated.
Or not sophisticated. But there are so many people in the industry, and this is one of these things, I know you agree with me on this. I feel for dealers that have been in it for the last 2 even to 3 decades, but certainly in the last 20 plus years. The technology growth has happened so fast, and it's not simple technologies. It's been really complex technologies. And the first thing that happened, and you and I have talked about this a million times, when I started talking about dealers are addicted to leads, they have an addiction problem, and they don't have, a process solution to, so they're like constantly, I want more leads. Right. Well, it was cool that the internet opened up the door for, hey, now consumers don't have to deal with you. They're afraid of you, whether that's justified or not. That was the very, very beginning. Now it's like, well, now you can have a presence on the internet, and now you can have multiple presences because social media opens the door. But 100%. We're now in that stage where we get into these different iterations of web 2.0, 3.0, and where it goes from there, where this interaction between consumers and businesses is so critical, because now the technology layers are now opening that up as well. So it's like you start here and it goes a little bit bigger, and then bigger, and then bigger. And then bigger. Yeah. And imagine being the average car dealer who's like, man, I'm just trying to sell more cars. Trying to understand.
Imagine being a big business and giving your customers the feel as if you were a local business that knew you.
Yeah.
That's what I'd love to be able to do for my own business.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to do with the bigger you get. And the small dealer can maybe pull it off, but then they want to sell more. And then the big dealers start having the same problems as I'm having with it, because you got to hire more people and train them and then teach them about the, I talked about Ira Rosenberg on our first podcast. He would always kiss babies and shake hands, and he was that guy. And it's hard to be that guy when he grew to, 15, 20 locations.
Yeah.
But how do you continue to try and develop that? To me, that, so I'll leave you with this, and then if you have any final words, and maybe we sign off. But I went to Autovate, and there were 3 progressive dealers on stage. I won't name their names because I don't know them that well, but I spoke with all of them afterward, and they're investors, as well as progressive dealers. And what they said on stage was, we love new technology. We're always willing to listen and hear about it. All of them said, if you mention the word AI, we're going to run. And so I had to ask some of them. And I asked 2 of the 3 of them after they were off stage what they meant by that. One of them was the first one to mention it. And they basically said the same thing, like, it's just being prostituted, that word. You know what I mean? Everybody's like using it to get in front of you. And they don't really have AI. And so what Strawlid has invented isn't necessarily AI, it's robot food.
Yeah.
And these AI machines, these chat GPTs, they need that food to help you, if it's going to help you at all.
Yeah.
If you're not feeding it good food, it's not going to help you very much. So you said, AI can be wrong. It's not wrong. It's just spitting back what you taught it. So if you're feeding it bad information, yes, the AI is going to be wrong.
Yeah.
But how is having a conversation with a customer bad information? It is the information.
You're right.
That every business should want to know. Like, it doesn't matter if it went good or bad. They liked you. They didn't like you. They talked shit about you. They said you were the best things in sliced bread. You had the car. You didn't. You had the colors available. You didn't. Whatever it might be, you're feeding that in. And, one of the biggest problems I have, Sean, with some dealers is they want their numbers to look good so badly that some of them are willing to compromise their own integrity and mess with the data. Can you believe that?
Unfortunately, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, why are you messing with the data? Like, just so you can feel good, or you can, impress your boss. I think one of the things my boss liked about me is I would never hide the data. I'll be like, well, we need to fix this.
Yeah. Yeah. Stopping the clock isn't the answer, right?
It's so stupid.
How do we retool our processes? How do we, I just did
an analysis for a General Motors dealer, and they're at like a 2% lead to close ratio. They make one phone call on the lead, maybe send an email. Sometimes I saw some that they didn't. And they were a 4.5 second response time, 4.5 minute response time. Like,
yeah, those are not.
What good is that doing?
Not the right hand. Bullseyes on wrong targets. Well, hey, I think this is a great place to park this episode. For the audience regarding this episode, if you like it, if you love it, or none of the above, it doesn't matter. We'd still love to hear from you. Dealer Insights Podcast gets better with your comments and questions and feedback and recommendations. We are going to do a follow-up to this, whether we call it a part 2 or not. We are going to go deeper in the kind of stuff that Strahl has been developing, and it's going to be amazing. So if BDC is important to you, if customer communication and conversational data, these are important topics to you, stay tuned for the next episode. But if you got questions about this topic, put them in the comments section below. Send them to us at info@Strawlid, that's STROLID.com. And until next time, stay strong and solid, and you'll never miss.